Half of American adults have now received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and almost a third are now fully vaccinated. This comes as Johns Hopkins University says 3 million people worldwide have now died from the disease. The number of people in the U.S. willing to take the shots is increasing. A new poll shows 75% of Americans say they'll get vaccinated, up from 67% in January. However, a significant number of Americans across racial lines say they probably or definitely won't get the shot, including 26% of white Americans, 24% of African Americans, and 22% of Hispanic Americans. And a poll last week found that almost half of Republicans do not plan to get vaccinated, while 2/3 of Democrats have already received at least one vaccine dose. Now, White House Chief Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci says people who have already been vaccinated may need to get booster shots, and an annual vaccine may be needed, similar to the seasonal flu shot.
I believe by the time we get to the end of the summer and the beginning of the fall, we'll have a pretty good idea whether we definitely or not need to give people boosts and when we need to give it to them.
Every state has now expanded vaccine eligibility to all people 16 and older. And Pfizer has begun testing its vaccine on children as young as 6 months old. This California couple's 7-month-old son will take part in the trial this week.
When we weigh the risks of getting the vaccine versus the virus, it's clear, let's do the vaccine.
Meanwhile, Johnson & Johnson's single-shot vaccine is still on hold. After 6 women suffered severe blood clots, that's out of 7 million vaccinations. Fauci says he expects the pause to be lifted this week, possibly with new restrictions.
Not sure what that will be, whether they'll be age or sex, or whether they'll just come back with a warning of some sort.
The White House is launching a media blitz today to get out the word that vaccines are available for everyone over 16, especially in minority communities. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dave. Well, CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson is here for more on those vaccines. Lori, is this J&J vaccine suspension just an overreaction?
A lot of health experts say it absolutely is an overreaction because when you think about it, the chance of having one of these types of blood clots is close to zero, Pat. You know, people say, oh, it's a 1 in a million chance. This is actually more rare than that. We're talking about 6 cases out of 7 million people. And when you talk about the deaths, we're talking 1 out of 7 million, which is actually a very good safety record. It's better than the safety record for a lot of our other popular medications, including penicillin and Tylenol. So the big takeaway, Pat, is if you're worried about blood clots, you have a 10 times greater chance of having a serious, maybe even deadly blood clot if you get COVID-19. This is something we've been talking about for the last year. So it's still very rare, and blood clots are a very often serious and deadly complication from getting the COVID-19 virus.
I'll give my personal thing. I had the J&J vaccine. I have had not one twinge of problem. There was no pain at the place they made the injection. I've had no ill effects whatsoever. I mean, not even the slightest headache, nothing. So I'm a great fan of that one-shot deal. So how close do you think we are to the so-called tipping point where we can say, okay, we've got victory over the pandemic?
Well, Pat, first, I would like to say thank you so much for your testimonial about the J&J vaccine. I'm sure you're going to influence a lot of people and may save lives in the process. And I would just like to add to that, I am also fully vaccinated. I had the Pfizer shots, and I also didn't have any side effects whatsoever. But to get back to your question about when are we going to finally be finished with this pandemic, well, I'd like to say that once you're fully vaccinated, you kind of are finished. You can sort of go about life as usual. But as far as the nation, when are we going to be finished? The health experts say right now we still have too many new cases. We're averaging about 67,000 new cases per day. That's even higher than the 50,000 we saw this time last month. And that's because of those new highly contagious variants. We know that the goal is less than where we are now, but the goal is not zero. The question is, what is that number? Last week, Congressman Jim Jordan grilled Anthony Fauci. What is the goal? Where's the finish line? line. Is it 10,000 new cases a day? Is it 5,000 new cases a day? And Fauci wouldn't say. He basically said, we'll know it when we see it.
Laurie, well, one last thing. If you've had the vaccine, do you still have to go around with a mask? I understand it takes about 3 weeks, 4 weeks or something for it to take hold, and then do you then have to wear a mask, or what's the protocol?
Well, the protocol is 2 weeks after your last shot. So in your case, you only had the one and only shot. I had 2 shots. So it's 2 weeks after your last shot, and you are fully vaccinated, and you can basically go about business. Now, whether you have to wear a mask or socially distance, that's very controversial. The CDC said that there's no evidence that shows that you can transmit it to other people. But other people, such as Anthony Fauci, say there's a study going on. The results will come out in about 4 months that will say definitively whether vaccinated people have the ability to transmit the virus. So it's sort of a judgment call.
It's an amazing thing that socially distanced 6 feet, that I understand is from a dead Italian. And it's only 3 feet, and it's not 6, but we've got 6 all over the country. Am I right there?
Well, we'll certainly learn. It's going to be fascinating to see in the years after this pandemic, to look back and see where we got it right and where we got it wrong, and learn from those mistakes, because God forbid we may be facing another pandemic one of these days.
Laurie, thank you so much. Thanks for your insight.